You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Wednesday. Not Wednesday, it's Thursday. No idea what day is what. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group, and we have the lightest mailbag we've ever had. Maybe it's because I didn't do it 2 weeks ago when my grandfather was ill and gotten out of momentum and all of that kind of stuff, but we have to break this down in a different way because can't put all the leaders and best in one, because most of the leaders and best, not all, asked questions, but the Victors Valiant didn't ask a lot of questions, only 2. And then there's 2 others. So it's not a lot. It's 10. Or that was 10 tweets, not even 10 question askers. So we have to get to it. This is going to be a short one. I'm not going to complain about that. I've got Tool tonight. I'm heading right down to Detroit to see Maynard, James Keenan, and all of them right as soon as I finish uploading this. So kind of works out, right? But anyway, let's get to it, starting with our leaders and best, at least most of them. I did push one to the second segment, but it's not a punishment. It's just how things have to go for this one. James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Do you think the offense will change at all? If so, what aspects? And would you prefer just to have one OC as opposed to co-coordinators? As far as the offense is concerned, I would imagine it certainly could, but I think it's one of those things where it could be a little bit more dynamic because I think you have more playmakers, whether it's guys you added through the recruiting class. Darius Clemens, I think, is going to be a stud straight out. I think that Donovan Edwards is going to play a much larger role. I think AJ Henning has started to kind of find a groove, things like that, all kind of working to make you think like, this thing could take a step forward. Cade being more comfortable. I think it could be one of those things where it continues to build, right? Like it was what it was at the end of the year, which was a lot different than the beginning. And I think it's one of those things where I think you try to hit that point that you were at the end of the year and then build on it. And build and build and build. Because this offense could be really special. The unfortunate thing is personnel-wise, you could lose pretty much the entire offense. Kind of 2016 defense, think that offensively. You could probably lose the entire offense going into next year. But that's a future problem. They've got a lot that they can deal with. I think that one thing that very well could change is I don't think it will necessarily be as run first. I still think it will be prioritize the run game because, you got Blake Corum, you got Donovan Edwards, but this is something I think could be a very pass-heavy offense. Let me put it this way. I would be surprised, and I say this almost every year and this year, but this is more this year than ever. I would honestly be surprised if whoever, as long as one quarterback is getting the primary, well, let's not even say one quarterback. I would be surprised if the overall passing yards record cumulatively isn't broken this year because you've just got so many weapons in the passing game. And I still think the run game can be very good. It might not take a step back at all. I think that when Hassan Haskins kind of had to take over because of Blake Corum, I don't think we were talking about Hassan Haskins in the way that we were talking about Blake Corum. Blake Corum was kind of the feature guy. He wasn't the first one out of the gates, but I think that Corum was really showing something before his injury. And now he's third year. I think that you get better year over year generally. You add Donovan Edwards to the mix. This could be as special of an offense as possible. And as far as preference over having one OC compared to co-coordinators, I really honestly don't care as long as it works. You know what I mean? If it doesn't work, then yeah, you look and you say one guy. But they had co-coordinators in 2016. No one was complaining about it then. But then in 2017, yeah, it didn't work. So then you complain about it. But I think that it's fine to have co-coordinators as long as if it works. Then I think that's absolutely fine if that's the case. So Josh Barr at Jadicki, any interesting tidbits you have heard from spring ball practice yet? Now, famously, I don't check in, and we haven't had press conferences. But the things that I have heard are really just the Darius Clemens has just been an absolute beast. Absolute beast. That he's just running by people. He's just like, and I'm talking like he's running by good defensive backs, guys who are proven, like the DJ Turner types, that he's just that unbelievable. Oluwatimi supposedly is just an absolute monster at center. And let me think what else. I think that's pretty much the full bulk of it. Obviously, Mike Sainristil still sounds like he's working on both sides of the ball, which we'll talk about here momentarily. Is there a worse narrative out there than Phil is the real coach and Juwan is just a recruiter? I mean, there's a lot of bad narratives, and they all come, obviously, from rival fans that want to try to get under your skin. It's a bad narrative. It's stupid. Obviously, things have looked different with Phil Martelli being the main coach. Juwan Howard was a coach in the NBA. You know? Like, people trying to make him seem like he doesn't know what he's talking about, what he's doing. It's just grasping at straws. It's wishful thinking, especially after what happened last year. Phil Martelli is a really good coach, but Phil Martelli will also tell you that Juwan is like a prodigy. He'll tell everyone who listens. He has said it a bunch of times. Finishing us out in segment 1, Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. Who are you expecting to be the most dynamic new player for this year's team? Could be a freshman or someone who's just not played much yet. I've already mentioned the freshman, Darius Clemens. I'll add Donovan Edwards. I think he's going to be, we've seen him look really good. Maryland game, 170 yards on 11 catches or something like that. 10 catches, something. I think he's just going to take a massive step forward. Remember how Blake Corum looked in year 1 compared to year 2? Like, year 1, you're like, all right, sure. Year 2, it didn't take long, and you're like, oh my good Lord. Expect that with Donovan Edwards. I think Donovan Edwards is going to just blow everybody away. Number 2, how many losses will the Big Ten champ have? I don't know if you're talking basketball or which I can't really answer on that, but if we're talking football, 1. It's what Michigan had last year, 1. It's what Ohio State tends to have, 1. So I'm going to stick with that. That's where I'm going. All right, March Madness is only a couple weeks away. That means you need to start thinking about where you're going to be running your brackets this year. Are you going for the usual, or are you looking for the best? We've done our homework here, and we're running brackets with runyourpool.com. Along with standard brackets, Run Your Pool offers types like Survivor or Pick X, both really fun in their own way. They have options to edit scoring, and they also offer more intel to make your picks, all stuff you won't find at ESPN or CBS. If you've got a business, Run Your Pool can help you take some of that madness magic and play alongside your employees or even gain customers. Plus, they offer full white glove customer support, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups you'll ever find. Clearly, we believe Run Your Pool because, like I said, we're running our brackets there ourselves. There's no truer test than that. Now, we're going to have one for Locked On Wolverines, but there is a Locked On one. So if you want to play against us for a shot at a cash prize, join us at runyourpool.com/lockedon. While you're there, create your own pool for your friends and family. Enter Pure Madness at checkout for $10 off your custom pool. All the rules and details will be available there. That's runyourpool.com/lockedon for your chance to win a cash prize. We look forward to seeing and beating you there. Honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if we don't even hit the 21-minute mark like we're supposed to. I can try to tease things out and do as much as I can, but we've only got 3 question askers with 5 questions coming up this segment, and then 2 question askers in the next segment. It ain't gonna be a long one. A little bit disappointed. I love having a ton, but still, like I said, I have other things going on. Namely, I'm ready to see Tool do their thing. I haven't seen him since 2007. So excited about it. Continuing with the leaders and best, Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Which of the new coaches or changes to coaches' roles is your favorite? I think it's Mike Elston. Because I think you got a guy who knows recruiting. He's your recruiting coordinator. And you've got a guy who is like, no offense to Sean Nua. Sean's great. This guy is a massive step up from Sean Nua, in my opinion. He has done a great job at Notre Dame. And he's from Ann Arbor. And this comes at a time when you need someone to get to develop your guys up front more than you ever have. And maybe not more than ever, but it feels that way, right? Because you don't have a lot of depth. You don't have a lot of proven. You've got Mozzie Smith, and that's it. Chris Jenkins, I think, is going to be really good. I think Julius Welskoff is still around, it looks like. I haven't looked at the spring roster yet, but I've watched some of those videos Michigan's released. I'm pretty sure I saw Julius out there. And then obviously, like, you want Rayshawn Benny to be ready to go. You want some of those other guys being ready to go. And then you need to find a way to get sacks. You need to get production from Mike Morris and Taylor Upshaw, Jalen Harrell. Jalen Harrell will probably be working with, I don't know if he'll be working with Elston or if he'll be working with Hilo, but because I'm not really sure how that exact delineation works. But I think just having that defensive line coach that is like a home run type guy, he can turn guys that are just like, yeah, I guess he could be pretty good into like absolute beasts. And now I'm not saying Aiden Hutchinson because that's not going to come around too often. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, he can turn some of those guys into Chase Winoviches, right? And that's exactly what Michigan needs is someone who can do some stuff like that. I mean, there's other changes and things that are great. I mean, you got to love the Denard Robinson coming back just for the sake of it's Denard and him being in the program. I mean, that's just something that's just going to work well with recruiting. It's just great. And then also, I think that's about it. We'll see about Jesse Minter. We'll see about Jay Harbaugh with the safeties. I'm happy that Grant Newsome got his role. It's disappointing after how many times have we talked about on this podcast around this time last year about how huge it was for Michigan to have Jay Harbaugh as the tight ends coach. I think that Grant Newsome could probably, he's been watching and learning and working with Jerome Moore, and I'm sure Jay as well, and I think that he'll be just fine there, but it's disappointing to have him move over, but maybe the safeties just take another step forward, and we'll see what this awesome wide receivers room looks like with Ron Bellamy, because I think Ron Bellamy, obviously, I mean, that's his position. You got to love that. Adam Kasel at Adam_Kasel. Oops, actually, I'll come back to you, Adam. Jim at Jim in the North. How good will the pass rush be this year? I would not be surprised if it took a pretty big step back. I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan was more or less not just trying to force a quarterback off their spot and just trying to play the coverage game. But I mean, they'll still try to get after the quarterback. But I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I obviously did not think it was going to be nearly as good as it ended up being last year. I'm willing to be surprised again. To me, that's the potential weakness of this team, because I like what they've got in the back seven, more so the back four. The linebacker group still has some dudes. It's a little bit thin, but then you look at the front four, front five, however you want to delineate. It's a little bit tricky. So I really like Mike Morris and Taylor Upshaw. They're both going to have to take a massive step forward. And then you hope, I've seen some Braden McGregor in some of those Michigan videos, and you hope that he's ready. I mean, this is year 3. I know he missed year 1 essentially. This is year 3. This is when Aiden really, really started taking off, right? So it's time. It's time for some of those guys, but then it's just they don't have that obvious room that they've tended to have for the rest of the Jim Harbaugh era, where it's like, all right, these guys are gone, but these guys are up next. They just don't have that right now. So it'll be interesting to see. But then again, we weren't talking about David Ojabo that much until week 4, week 5. So things can change in a hurry. The lights click on, it can change in a real big hurry. How do you think Haskins will do in the pros? James Stewart, and it says James Stewart, Leroy Horde. I'm not really sure what you're asking there. I'm assuming you mean Leroy Horde. I think James Stewart's a pretty good comp. I think he can just be like a steady type. I don't think he's gonna be the type of guy that just blows everybody away in the NFL, but I think he can just be a steady, he just gets you 4 or 5 yards when you didn't expect much. I think he can have a decent 5-6 year NFL career. But I'm not really sure. It's hard to really predict what anyone's going to do in the pros outside of the top guys. First round, you usually feel pretty good outside of that. But I think Haskins has got obviously a lot of physical traits. I think he's way more gifted than a lot of people are giving him credit for. And he's got a lot of more athleticism than what people give him credit for, even though he hurdled a guy a game basically at near the end. So it'll be interesting to see. But I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think he's going to make someone really happy, and I think I could see him being a starter. But I don't necessarily know that it's going to be a flashy variety. All right, Adam Kasel, at Adam_Kasel. How does the football team keep the strong player leadership going year over year so it's not dependent on the right group coming together at the right time? The big part for that is the seniors teaching the younger guys, this is what you need to do. This is the standard that we're setting that you're going to have to set. The good news is I know that Aiden Hutchinson, after talking to Melissa Hutchinson back in the postseason, she said that Aiden was working with different guys to have that. And then you still got Cade, and JJ's got that same mentality. And I think part of it is recruiting guys that aren't me first and that are team first. It's like the thing that I told you a long time ago that Pep Hamilton told me about Ohio State guys that need football. Well, if you don't necessarily just get guys that need football, but get guys that do things the right way, and that's part of it, and not give up when the going gets tough, which I had heard that some 2019 type guys, that 2018 type guys, that happened. Going got tough. Well, let's mail it in. It doesn't matter if it's the second quarter. It's over. So it's just about the sense of getting the right mentality installed and then perpetuating it, and having the senior leadership teach that to the younger guys and then perpetuating it forward. What 1 to 3 players take the next step in on-field production? Well, obviously, I've been saying, Donovan Edwards. I could really see Roman Wilson being another one of those guys. I think, obviously the injury kind of hampered him. We've seen the flashes. I think he could be a guy that suddenly is whoa, And I think Junior Colson is just going to be lights out. Saw something with someone calling him Devin Bush Light. I think he's better than that. I think he's better than Devin Bush Light. I think he has the potential to be better than Devin Bush. Not as flashy as Devin Bush, but still better. He's not going to be necessarily that big, eraser, but I think he's that type of guy that, when it's all said and done, you're that guy had a nose for the football. He was a leader. He did all the things right. Who's a player that surprises fans is cracking the 2 deep? Too early for me to be able to answer that, unfortunately. Let's wait till we get through spring ball, and then I'll have something like that. How far did the basketball teams go in their respective Big Ten and NCAA tournaments? I wouldn't be surprised if the women's basketball team won the entire Big Ten. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a Final Four team. The men's team feels like a quarterfinals, maybe even semifinals team, depending on the matchups they get in the Big Ten. And I could see them going Sweet 16, depending, again, the matchups they get. But I would be surprised if they made it out of that. Maybe not. I mean, if they're a 10 or 11 seed, which is probably where they're going to be. Maybe they won't get there. Maybe they only are a first or second round type team because it's going to be some uphill battles. But this team can beat anybody if the shooting's on and the defense is there and the intensity. Problem is, seems like a lot of games they're not. Those things are not. All right, listen, football might be over for the season, but basketball is full steam ahead for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your favorite source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, information, and much more. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. We are going to get to 21 minutes in a couple seconds. I'm actually surprised. But you know what? It's nice and easy. We're just kind of doing it. It's real good. I don't know. All right, Isaac Hamlin at Hamstand87. Do you think if Cade wins the starting job, JJ gets a bunch of clock because our first four opponents are soft? Maybe this will get people to relax a bit. Listen, people aren't going to relax over it, right? People weren't relaxing over Cade. They're still not relaxing over Cade. Dude beat Ohio State. Won a Big Ten championship. People still not relaxing over Cade. No, people are not going to ever relax over Cade while JJ's around. JJ is the unicorn where people are not going to clamor for his backup in Ann Arbor. That doesn't happen. But as far as Cade is concerned, I definitely think that JJ will get a bunch of clock because I think that, say Cade wins the starting job, I think it's going to look very similar to what it did last year, maybe even a little bit more split, but we'll see. Who knows how they're going to figure things out. Things feel a little, like a lot less than going into last season, but still a little just, we'll see. All right, finishing us out. Overall is Laura at MGO Blow, BLEAUX. Just curious if you think Phil Martelli is making any difference as coach in comparison to Juwan Howard. Martelli has such a wealth of experience and may be better with using younger players. Howard will get there soon, but maybe Martelli has some advantage there. I could be way off. I don't think that it's necessarily that he has an advantage because I think that he is still a coach on Michigan's team, right? Like it's not like Juwan's ignoring his muses behind him. They're assistant coaches for a reason, and they are there to inform and impart and do all those types of things. And just because he's 2-1, I don't think that means like Juwan wouldn't have been 2-1. I think he's essentially running the same type of stuff that Juwan would have run. I think that it, like run and gun against Illinois, I think they probably would have done that. Transition defense against Michigan State, I think they probably would have done that. I don't think it's anything special that he's doing that's given Michigan 2 wins out of 3 games so far, but we'll see. All right. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today. We will talk soon. We appreciate you. We'll be back on Friday. So thank you for watching and or listening. Peace.